A major trade shakes up the NFL draft and how the Chiefs reap the benefits, all stages, who did what it means, and who's going to be available for Kansas City coming up today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Big day, big trade, a lot of effect on what's going to be there for the Kansas City Chiefs or what they might do. This is Locked On. You know us. We're your team every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us for free on all the platforms, including YouTube, where you could go sub and like and do the bell thing, and that always helps. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting that you can see right down here, Rogue APC. If you go over there right now, you can get the Athletic Matrix for over a 20% discount if you use the code Locked On. And hold on to that, too, because the draft guide is coming hopefully within the next week or so, and you'll be able to use the same code for that. You know, there's a lot of work goes into it. I can't guarantee, but you can find it over at rogueabc.com. You can find me at RGR Football as well as on the Locked On NFL Draft Show, which we thank you for making us your first listen. That might be a good second listen. We're brought to you today by Rock Auto, all the parts your car's ever going to need. Check them out at Rock Auto. Okay, Chris, business out of the way. Didn't expect to talk about this today.
Yeah, my name is Chris Clark, founder of Chiefs Corner. As you can see underneath Ryan, it is listed there as well. KC Chiefs Corner. Just had an article actually came out that talked about the cost of the QBs specifically for Kansas City and really how it relates to the entire NFL. So be sure to go check that out. I was sitting working today thinking, going to be a nice, easy day, not going to be any NFL news. Nobody's going to make a trade, this far away from the draft. And then all of a sudden,
it's mirroring last year when you started the maneuvering. And I don't think this in any way ends it. I think this is just the kickoff maneuver. But run us down the picks that were moved and your interpretation of what it means.
So it looks like the Eagles received the 18th pick, the number 101 pick in the third round, the number 237 pick in the seventh round, a 2023 first round pick, and a 2024 second round pick from the Saints. And the Saints are getting picked 16 and 19 in this year's draft and pick 194 in the sixth, which I'm sure just made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, right. So they move
after 6,
They move up effectively 2 spots that they get the second number 1 round pick. And congratulations for the 194. You can get somebody that can play teams for you or something there with a value pick like that. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this sets up, and I know we're focusing on the Eagles and the Saints right now. And for the Eagles, I think this trade makes sense for them. They just don't see, they had 3 first round picks. This is a great opportunity for them to move back, get another first round pick next year, find out if they have their QB of the future. If they don't, they can draft one next year. They'll still have 2 number 1s next year and an extra second in 2024 as well. To kind of move around as they need be. You look at New Orleans, and I think this really shows you how much of a big deal that the salary cap can be, because I think this is influenced by the salary cap.
Yeah, everything is, right? It's all.
Well, look at what they did. They had nobody that they could replace everybody that they lost with. And they had to restructure all these contracts to make cap space, which they have now, but they lost half their roster, it seems.
I mean, yeah, it's a move that I think tells you about recovery at the one position that you have to do. Nobody does this if they're not seeking a quarterback. And it doesn't preclude either of these teams technically. I don't think the Eagles are in the quarterback market. So I think that's what allowed them to do this. Now, in the end, they're not giving up a ton, right? They're losing 1 first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, that's okay. But what they've done from the Eagles standpoint is they've gained, what was it? A first next season. So they'll have 2 first round picks next year. Then they'll have 2 2s in 2024. So they've stacked themselves up for a multi-year rollout of a rebuild or a restock or whatever you want to recall it.
Yeah, no, and I think that was a good move on their part. And I say this again, they're not looking for a QB this year, but they could be next year. And I think that's part of what could play into this. They're going to find out more about their QB this year. But you look at this, and I think it makes a lot of sense because while I think a lot of people will say that the top of this draft is probably pretty deep, as in talent-wise, it's a question of whether or not you feel you're going to get 3 3 first-round level talents at their 3 picks. And I don't know that you would have, at least in their grading system and in their system. And that's what's really important to teams.
It is. And especially when you're clustered there all together, 15, 16, 19 is where they were. It makes it very difficult unless you feel you're going to have multiple guys in your top 10 that are going to fall that far. And that's very hard to prognosticate and be correct on. So it does a couple of things. And I know, folks, I know exactly what you're thinking right this second. We're 5.5 minutes into the show and we haven't talked about Kansas City yet. Well, all of this has a significant impact in multiple ways on what the Chiefs are going to do.
Yep.
Not just about what those teams are going to pick, but where the Chiefs get and might get to pick. We're going to hit that coming up next, because I would bet you that the Chiefs don't pick at 29 and 20 or 30. And if I was going to lay that money down, you know exactly where I'd go. That's BetOnline, where you can get everything in your betting needs, your sports info world, all in one place. All the developments, all the crazy props on this championship game. If you were listening to this tonight while it's going, there's still time to put some money on the line. There's also everything prop-wise for the draft. A lot of different interesting things there. There's the Masters. There's all the other non-football sports. I don't enjoy those that much, so you don't have to worry about that. But if you like them, go for it. There's also live betting, esports, and all kinds of other things. Check them out. It's easy on their website. It's redesigned, and it's easy to get to from your mobile device as well. So check out BetOnline where the game starts.
Man, just imagine if you would have put money on Tiger playing in the championship this weekend.
You know.
Could be very rich, because I would guess that probably could have been a prop bet. And yeah, I'm guessing not many people took that. Really quick, before we jump into what this means for Kansas City, because I think it does mean a lot. Like you said earlier, you don't make this kind of trade unless you're going to try to get a QB. But the other thing I want to throw out with New Orleans is that this gives them the ammo to get in the top 5 if they want it. If they feel they have to get above
and so
Carolina.
it may not be done.
Right.
So, and the nice thing about that is that the only scenario in which that works is a package deal. So 16 and 18 are likely now going to be tied to the same team no matter what, whether it stays in the Saints' hands or they go ahead and try to move up to 5. They have to, in order. If you guys missed my mock draft for Lockdown NFL Draft yesterday, it's funny, we did all these mock drafts and now everything's gone. Round, but the way that it goes, right? But if you saw my mock draft where Croc and I kind of take turns and we do all kinds of different scenarios, right? This was my first round mock. I did every team. And I had Malik Willis going to the Carolina Panthers. So that's 5 is where they have to go. And that's really what this is about. So the good thing is, if Carolina or whoever, if the Giants were willing to trade out of 5, they're going to come down there now be the team that has 16 and 18. So the reason that I bring that up is, 19. 18 is now the Eagles. So Eagles has 15 and 18. Pittsburgh has 16 and 18. Okay.
New Orleans, not
I'll get
Pittsburgh.
That right. Oh, good Lord. I keep thinking Steelers. Yes. Okay. So this is what it all comes back to, is that I think it's partially driven by Malik Willis himself, because even though he is not one of my top 3 quarterbacks, he is the guy that has the most explosive upside of this quarterback class. And I think that's what everyone's chasing.
But is he really rated? I know he's rated number 1 by some teams, but is he really rated a first-round draft pick? I guess in order to make this kind of trade, you would have to think he is.
That's the thing.
Man, that seems like a huge reach to me.
I think most responsible scouting systems have him as one of the first rounders, but probably in terms of just a flat grade of the film, he's down there in the high 20s, as are most of these quarterbacks. The question begins is availability then gives you a big chunk, and his athleticism on top of it gives him another one. That's what driving this up. I still fall back to the film, so I don't have him as the top, but that's okay. Because what this does for Kansas City is it allows more teams that are now inching up, kind of trying to leapfrog each other, to go get these quarterbacks that honestly don't deserve that kind of ranking. And it drives more defensive players and more wide receivers down to the Kansas City area, at least where it is right now. And we'll talk about what might be the future here in that moment. But it is the cumulative effect of it just has to be quarterbacks, because teams in the top 10 or teams that are trading in the top 10 or maybe trying to, like the Saints here, you have to go get it when you have the capability if you want a top quarterback, no matter what class it is, whether it's a good class or a mediocre class like this one. And so that artificial emphasis on quarterbacks helps Kansas City for every moment that they have Patrick Mahomes, because they just don't need one of those guys.
True.
Let everybody go climb up the ladder as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and the thing that really sticks out to me is, yes, New Orleans could get to 5, and maybe that's going to be something that they will look at doing. But if I'm Carolina and I want Malik Willis, I'm looking how far back up or how far can we go up? Because New Orleans isn't going to have the picks to go all the way up, but Carolina probably will. They could probably
Detroit
make
Lions fans are right as they yell at me that there's no quarterback in their future. Number 2 could be for sale right now.
Could be. And Detroit would be very smart to make that move because it would give them the opportunity to kind of reload their roster, which they absolutely need to do. I want to throw this out really quick because it was another thing that was kind of talked about. I think it was Ian Rappaport talked about this on the Pat McAfee show today. And he said that while teams are still saying DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown are not available for trade, league circles still believe they are. And that also looks like that's going for Terry McLaurin as well. So you talked about this earlier, and I do think it relates. I don't think Kansas City picks at 29 and 30. They may pick at 29. They may pick at 30. They may not pick at either spot. But the wide receiver market is about to get moving, I think, if it's going to.
I think you could be right. And I don't know. The only thing that I'm reluctant to say is that it's going to happen now. I feel like there's going to be draft night trades of the wide receiver groups. That's how it feels to me, like this stubborn, no, we're not interested in giving anybody up. No. But if you came at the right price, maybe.
Now wait a second. So you're saying after the craziest offseason we've seen in years, the draft night could be even more insane than it normally is.
Yes. It will be all kinds of crazy. Now, the Chiefs have a couple of moves they can make. We'll talk about those coming up, but I just do want to let you guys know. Locked On as a network, we are streaming. We'll have a live piece here the first draft night, and then we'll cut over to the main feed where Eric Crocker and I will be live from Dallas, Texas. We will be covering the entire draft pick by pick. You'll have every pick and every reaction that I can give you, as well as interviews with the local host for every show. A bunch of us will be in studio. You guys are going to love it. It's going to be great. So get prepared for that. It will be over on the main NFL channel, as well as on Roku and some streaming services through the Tegna organization. So keep that in mind. Now, there's 2 moves in particular that I think this sets up for Kansas City really, really, really well. I think we should get into those here in a minute.
But before we get into those, let me tell you about our friends over at Rock Auto. Save time and money when using rockauto.com. Why choose to spend 30% to even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. I know Ryan likes that site.
I do. It helps me because I have a tendency to,
break things.
Mistreat my truck. I gotta
imagine that.
I'm not the most careful with it. Pine trees get in my way a lot. Let me just put it that way.
It's a truck. It happens. It's meant to happen.
It does. So the number one thing for me is, with everyone moving up, I think it loosens the trade value at the back end of the draft. The last 12 selections or so in the 20s. Because you've had teams that have already moved down, so they're not prioritizing a particular player, or in this case, a particular position of the quarterback, right? So that I think helps the Chiefs in one way, in that if they choose, depending on what all the draft night trades in, we'll talk about in a minute, if they choose that they have to go up to get an edge, or they have to go up to get a wide receiver, I think that loosens the possibilities and makes it more possible for them to move up within the 20s, say from 30 to 21, maybe. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to stay at 20 unless they move up. If that happens, then all things are off as far as I'm concerned.
All bets are off. Yeah, which is pretty close to
but
anyway.
If the Chiefs can get to, yeah. If the Chiefs get to 20, though, I like their versatility. What do you like about that, or would you not?
No, I do like the versatility. I have to ask a quick question though. How many QBs do you think are going in the top 20 picks?
See, this is the hard part for me. 2-3 weeks ago, I was still going off of grades and how many guys deserve to be in there and could walk into a franchise and start. And I only had 2.
Oh, 2, really?
Yeah.
I thought that would have been lower.
Well, Kenny Pickett is pretty polished. He can run an offense.
Sure.
Matt Corral can do a lot. He's actually my number 2 as of now. A couple weeks ago, it was Desmond Ridder because, again, he could walk in and run a pro-style offense. Not necessarily perform up to par, and that's where it comes into, like, maybe there was 0, right? But now, because of all this artificial pressure, because of the enormous need, and for teams like the Panthers who have a coaching staff that might be on their last chance, for teams like Atlanta who haven't been in this position in a long time, and Terry Fontenot, a GM that needs to make some noise. Maybe they want to do something. Like, there's a lot here. Mike Tomlin's legacy might be on the line if he can't replace Ben. So there's a lot of, I feel like, not just film grade, like how is he on the field kind of pressure coming this particular draft. So that's why I feel like there could be 3, there could be 4 legitimately go in the first round now because of that pressure.
Please let there be 4.
Right.
That's all I want. Please let there be 4 QBs go in the top 20. That would actually really help Kansas City, and it's because it pushes other players down. We've talked about it before, and we'll talk about it probably up until draft day. I would expect, though, that after this trade with the Eagles and the Saints, this is probably going to force some other teams to reevaluate and maybe even make trades as well over the next couple of weeks. So there could be lots of different trades coming, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I do think that edge is obviously where Kansas City is looking. Wide receiver could be another one. I still think they trade for a corner, although that got a little bit dicier with New York picking up an option on Adoree Jackson today. So it makes it a little bit less needy to, get rid of Bradbury before the draft. I still think it happens because they still need cap space. But it's going to be a very intriguing time over the next 2 or 3 weeks to see if there's any more big trades that happen, which I would expect there's going to be just because that's the way the NFL is working right now. And I will say this has usually been a very slow time, and it's been a very slow off season for the most part in most years. I'm loving what's going on right now. Teams are just starting to realize that they can start trading pieces and trading players for draft picks and for other players and getting better where they need to. I think it's great for the league.
Now you got to watch pick 2. You got to watch pick 4, pick 5. Those are the ones in play for me. And if those happens, that's going up for a quarterback without fail. The nice thing about that is that drops the edges down. That puts, unlike we saw this last week, where the hype, even despite the injury to David Ojabo, for him and Moffitt going above where the Chiefs are selecting right now. That's been kind of league-wide, feeling like these edges are the gold in this draft group, and they're going to go higher, even if they are the less experienced, even if they are the less polished pass rushers. This allows some more edges to fall to the Chiefs. It also opens up that trade value, and I would not be surprised to see them go, and maybe they try to go take, I don't know, 21 is probably my favorite target right now because you're not going to get 20. I'll tell you that. I don't think the Steelers, unless the Steelers go up and end up in New York spot, and then the Giants, you might get to wrangle them back out. But I think the Patriots are the spot because the Patriots have their quarterback. They had a solid defense anyway. I've been projecting them to take a linebacker, but the Chiefs get to 21. They should have multiple options at edge. They should have multiple options at wide receiver, especially if the quarterbacks are pushing all of that down. This drops Jameson Williams out of the top 10, most likely, if this is what continues to happen.
Yeah, we'll see if it drops him out of the top 10 or not. I'm very curious to see if it does. I do think that this is obviously a good thing for Kansas City, and I will argue this as well. If Kansas City is looking at this draft at 29 and 30, there is no way they think they're getting a first-round talent at 29 in their minds right now. So if they want a first-round talent, if they want one of those top-tier players, you've got to trade up. Now, how high is the question? And that's something we can't answer right now. I think that they're going to be looking, it's a question of who they like as a first rounder. Do they, what edge players do they like? What corners do they like? And what wide receivers do they like?
Yeah. Those are the big three. And I'm just sitting back and grinning for Brett Veach and his
Me too.
staff right now. Mike Borgonzi is chuckling somewhere. Just let these guys go up and get these risky quarterbacks and keep screwing around. And you're going to let us get either an incredible wide receiver or an edge that will chase around all these quarterbacks that think that they have a chance to win the AFC West now.
Yeah, and the other thing that's going to be very curious is with all these QBs going up, the likelihood of Kansas City being able to draw back into the early 30s is probably going to be going away, because that is a prime position if somebody wants a fifth-year option, which is generally what you're going to want for a QB. So I don't think Kansas City is going to be dropping back into the early 30s. Maybe they can draw back into the early 40s, but I don't think they're going to be wanting to or be dropping into the mid 30s, I guess, or late 30s because of all these QBs probably going up.
Yeah, it does make it more difficult. I could have seen if the Jets get their main business done, maybe they want to take a chance. If same thing with the Lions, they could try to take it at 32. They might trade out of that. Like there were some options, but I think as this gets going, I do expect teams that still need quarterbacks, like Seattle, like Atlanta, maybe Washington. You could see more of this happening. I think obviously the Saints and the Steelers were probably the lower teams that still needed quarterback play, that you want to know the future. So with this kind of moving around, we'll see what the Steelers answer with. I think they might be the next ones that have to do something.
Well, and how do you feel if you're the Falcons right now? Because right now you're looking at probably losing out in Malik Willis at maybe 5, maybe 6. I mean, who knows where you're going to end up losing him out. And then you're going to be sitting there maybe getting a chance to get your third best QB in this draft at 8.
Maybe. I don't think the Atlanta Falcons have Malik Willis at the top.
No, I understand. But likely no matter who goes and gets Willis, if that's what they're trying to do and trading up and going to get above the Panthers, is because that's kind of the way I feel the Saints are going right now. Mm-hmm. I still think the Panthers are going to be looking at a QB at 6. And that takes 2 off the board. So then you're sitting there getting whoever you think the other QB is.
And I knew that Matt Rule had recruited Kenny Pickett back when he was at Baylor. Or was it? I don't know. At some point, they had a relationship. Kenny had considered it, whatever. What I didn't know is that was it Temple that he was recruiting him to? One way or the other. They had an interaction. There was some favorable camaraderie there. That's a connection. What I didn't realize is that there's a history in the Carolina Panthers ownership group now connected to Pitt as well. So I have a feeling he might be their top in terms of fit. Maybe that it was Matt Rule driving hey, if we can get Willis, then that gives us the X factor. But if he goes in the top 3, Carolina's got to be thinking that they're pretty comfortable with Kenny Pickett as their second choice.
Yep, and that could put 3 QBs in the top 10, which is only going to be a win for Kansas City regardless.
Yes. I mean, that pushes wide receivers and quality edges down into the teens now, within striking distance, as I call it. So,
and actually,
there's a lot to come, folks.
And it also pushes OTs there. It also pushes tackles down, because there's a lot of tackles that are expected to go high. And while Kansas City isn't going to be looking at tackle that early, obviously, that is still going to help them because it's going to push other guys down.
Yeah, that's true. I think we could still see 2 or 3 tackles go in the top 10, though.
Possibly
gets in there.
but if you have 3 QBs and 3 tackles, I mean, then you're sitting at 2 or 3 edges, maybe even going into the top. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, and it's only going to get more complex from here. Firing this salvo now only leaves room for more teams to get something done.
Mm-hmm. Which is what I expect to happen.
So. Hold on, folks. Hold on to your hats. It's going to get interesting around here. We'll have you covered the whole way and what it means for Kansas City. Croc and I will cover the entire draft over on Locked On NFL Draft. If you would please go check that one out, we would appreciate it as well. Chris, we're going to have to take a look at the cap too, and where these varying, if the Chiefs start moving around, which I do expect them to do, what their options might be in terms of cap implication. Chris keeps all the cap numbers. We will have that for you here later in the week. I hope that you guys have fun. Thank you for listening to us today. We'll talk.